performance appraisal, it was comparatively a little less. So with the introduction, the approach of performance appraisal has changed over the years. From one-time controlling activity, it shifted to become a development tool for improving the skill set of employees. In this context, it is termed as performance analysis and development. Under this approach, performance of the employee on the job is analyzed, weak areas are identified, and developmental activities are initiated to convert weak areas into strong areas. In recent years, it is integrated with performance orientation. Under this approach, the performance of the employees continuously monitored and the employees are developed in tune with the organizational requirements. So as I have read, I think it is very, very simple. I think it's just like similar to what we had learned in the last class on how we are having different rating systems, different methodologies, different methods that we have inculcated to understand where is the employee's continuous growth and what are the requirements, are his growth matching to the organizational goals as well. So even in this subject, even in this topic, we will be learning about the performance of the employees as well and how it has been evaluated, analyzed and developed. And also it is a very integrated approach, I feel, because it is continuously monitored and it has a lot of developmental activities where it has been initiated in the weaker areas to groom more and to make them very strong. So these are the analysis and development where the organization are concentrating for their requirements and for improving their skill set for the employees. So what is the meaning of performance management? Performance management is relatively a concept to the field of management. The managing of performance and results have become the central theme of performance management. Performance management is what it is, completely a new concept in the management, but everything focuses on the performance and the contribution to the actual results, where it constitutes the performance improvement zone. They need to understand where are the shortcomings and target those actual results and understand it with what is the desired result that is expected. I think that is performance management. Though performance management is defined differently by different writers, there is a common theme in all the definitions. As you can see, the following definitions, there is Lockhart definitions, Barron, Bourne, Francisco, and Wilde's definitions. So let's read one of the definitions, that is Lockhart definition. Lockhart in 1992, performance management is the development of individuals with competence and commitment working towards the achievement of shared meaningful objectives with an organization which supports and encourages their achievements. So this is again very simple. Like I've already told you that the actual results or what are the desired results, they need to understand and analyze on where they can improve and where they can target the gaps that is led by the employees, and how to develop these individuals in order to make them very competitive and increase their commitment towards their organizational loyalty and their jobs, right? Coming to performance management importance. The first importance is it helps to set up goals, and that is most employees endeavor to do their very best to their work. However, some employees need more engagement and motivation. If employees know what is expected of them, then it becomes easier for managers and their reporters to be on the same page. So what does performance management do? I think in so many slides, we have learned that how important is performance management to fill those gaps, for commitment, for competence, to understand what is the result and what is the desired result. There's so many things that goes down in performance management. So the first important over here that we learn is it helps to set up the goals. So how does it help us to set the goals? Is if there is absolutely no goal, we will not be able to work. There is no motivation at work. There is no encouragement. There is nothing, because there is nobody else to judge us. There's nobody else to see whether we are doing it correctly or whether we are expected out of this work or not. So when the managers are setting up a standard, a goal, and we know that we need to achieve that. So in this manner, what happens is the manager and the employee are on the same page and they're working towards an expected result, right? So that is the first importance of performance management that brings about the alignment in our organization. The next is assists in developing accountable people. So assists in developing accountable people is it helps the company to understand the mindset and level of engagement of employees. If the employees are happy, they will perform better work. This leads to employee engagement and assists in developing accountable and responsible people. Next is it encourages leadership and coaching skills. So a good manager will hold regular coaching and mentoring sessions with the members of their team in order to impart usefulness to their employees. So this will lead to the encouragement, leadership, and coaching skills. So what happens is if you get a good manager, the good manager will communicate to you about what is the set goals that you need to achieve. So in this manner, both of you are on the same page. Next is if you come across that the employees have to be performing better, and this engagement of performance of employees is being bought by the manager. And this leads to what? This leads to making sure that everybody is responsible towards, all our work. And next is if the manager is able to tell us better, coach us, mentor us to be a good guide, a useful guide. And this time it helps us to have a better team coordination, better team building activities that we can plan. So I think this vital role the manager plays, and also the willingness that the employee has towards working. So when both these things are there in the organization, and you are able to move forward with the performance management. And that is how important is performance management. The next importance is it helps in improving performance. So how does it help in improving performances? The goal of performance management is to boost productivity and engagement within a company. Everything about the performance management procedure should then reflect this goal. The organization should be as transparent about its process as possible. The performance management should be simple, it should be straightforward, and should add value to each party involved in the performance management process. So I think how to ensure that this performance management will help us to improve each other's performance is to understand that if you're working in the most transparent manner, so the more transparent manner that you're working, the more simple it will be, and it will be straightforward. So it will be easier for us to understand each person, each group, each member in the organization. And it helps us to improve and uplift our performance through performance management. So that's how performance management gets us to do. It helps us to ensure that it's a two-way process. It helps us to understand that everyone has a responsibility. And also it helps us to understand that we have to make things very simple. We have to make our job very simple. Next is it assists in recognition of accomplishments. The performance management system should give proper recognition to employees so that it reduces employees' mobility. Higher degree of employee mobility indicates that there is no direct relationship between achievement and financial compensation. Employee recognition has proven time and again to be much better predictor of engagement and employee retention. So this also, it helps us to assist in recognition and accomplishments. So what do we understand by performance appraisal and performance management? Like, the starting of the class, I have reflected upon performance appraisal on how we learned and the methods, the techniques that we have learned. So I'm sure that you all are following up with every weekend classes. So now, after understanding the last class, what is the difference that you have understood between both? Because you see that both of them are similar to each other, but what is the difference that draws that appraisal is different and management is different? So what I have understood is performance appraisal focuses on, if you have seen the rating scales, right? If you have seen the critical assessment, 360 degrees appraisal, MBO, if you have, if you remember all those methods, you must have seen that all those judgment parameters of employees are related on the ground of who is poor and who is good, right? We are able to understand that who is a better employee and who is the employee who's not doing work. And that is how simple segregation that we did through various methods, right? Through traditional and through modern methods that we had understood. And also that performance appraisals focuses on saying who's good or bad, who's good or poor, only on the term of salary basis, or in terms of recognition, in terms of salary basis, right? And it is more with the HR department, it is owned by the HR department. But over here, when we are learning about performance management, we have learned that it is more with the line managers, right? So the managers take, the lead in this. And it is also definitely linked to the payment. It is also definitely linked to our salary, but it is more flexible. And, it is very common procedure where the reviews have been taken on a standardized format, and everybody's values and behaviors is being taken into account. So that is how is the difference between both of the topics that we have learned. Next is performance management cycle. Performance management cycle is an important component in achieving organizational success and competitive advantage. The performance management cycle depicts the stages involved in the process. Various authors proposed various steps for performance management. So let us understand the cycle. This is the cycle. So we have the plan, act, monitor, review, sequence. I think these words itself, you would know that how the cycle would progress, and how the various steps of this management in order to have a competitive advantage that we need to focus on in order to have a competitive advantage. So this plan, act, monitor, and review sequence, right? What does it imply? So the first one is planning. So what is planning? Planning is to understand the future prospects, right? So you plan only to know what could happen in the future, or what could go wrong, or how to rectify things, how to improvise things. That is planning. So planning is the basic requirement to agree with what are the objectives and how to improve the development planning. Next is acting. Acting is carrying out all the activities required to achieve objectives and plans. Next is monitoring. Monitoring is checking on progress in achieving objectives. Reviewing is assessing progress and achievements so that action plans can be prepared and agreed. Another framework of performance management that highlights the reward function is the follows. That is defining the performance, facilitate performance, and encourage the performance. So, these steps that are there, in the performance management cycle, these are the steps that we learn on how to ensure that we focus on the cycle and, all the 4 points, and how to ensure that these expectations are met, from the organization point of view, and how to make our company more successful and attainable. Right. So the first step is plan or define performance. So it involves role definition, performance agreement, performance improvement plan, and personal development plan. Role definition is establishing a key result areas and competencies required for successful performance in the starting point. Performance agreement is that it has 3 elements: goals, measures, and assessment. Goals must be specific, challenging, and measurable. Goals such as make the company successful are too vague to be useful. Measures such as the number of defective parts produced per million or the average time to respond to customers' inquiry are much more tangible. In defining performance, the third requirement is assessment. Regular appraisal helps ensure that goals are attainable. So performance improvements plan. So you can see each step that is from planning. You plan what you plan in order to get a development, right? In order to achieve development, in order to understand our roles. Next is role definition. After understanding the role, you need to understand how to establish a result from these roles. Next is performance agreement. Performance agreement means any agreement that you have that should be measurable and it should be challenging, and it should also make sure that it is not vague. It should be understood. It should be easier to understand and to ensure that the company is marking success. Then you have performance improvement plan. That means it spells out what individuals should do to improve their performance. So improvement plan is what you need to even have a plan. You need to also design a plan that what was your initiatives in the previous semester or in the previous year, and what you could not achieve and what you could do and how you can improvise on that. So you should always understand that learnings are very important and how you need to unlearn to learn new things. And then it is personal development plan. So it sells out the actions people should take to develop their knowledge and skills and increase their level of competencies. So this is very, very important for us to understand. Next is act or facilitate performance. So now that we've understood the first one, the steps, that is to plan. So in order to plan, you need to role define, agreement, improve, and personal development plan. The next is act or facilitate performance. So how do we act? Again, we have three things, we had four things previous, now you have three things. So you have to improve your roadblocks, you have to provide resources, and you have to select employees. So how do you improve roadblocks? You need to improve roadblocks only when you are not using outdated equipments, when you are delaying supplies, inefficient design of workspace, and inefficient work methods. So when you know that you have to get improvements on maximum performance in getting these things done, so you should be well aware and willing to identify where these problems are lying, and the managers will only ask for the input. So then it's the manager's job to eliminate these obstacles. So the managers need to understand what should be considered, what should be removed. Now, supplies, you should not delay in this. You should not have insufficient designing of workspace. So these are the things that you have to act or facilitate your performance. Next is providing resources. Another is to improve adequate resources, capital resources, material resources, human resources in order to get the job done right. And then you have selecting employees. How do you select the employees? Only when, see, leading companies, even the top managers often get involved in selecting new employees. In Microsoft, even experienced software developers go through 5 or 6 hours of intense interviews. So this is how you need to get your selections done, intense. You have to carefully pay attention to what your employees are doing, what your employees' goals are, so that they can improvise your organization as well. And then monitor. I think you know the third step very well. The third cycle of our step is monitor. And what do you monitor? You monitor whatever that you have planned for, whatever you're planning to act for. That is, wherever there is necessary dealings, performance problems, or updated objectives. So all these things that you have to plan. Next is performance management cycle. So the fourth one is reviewing and rewarding. I think how do you review and reward? Only when you are at a stage where you have revised the agreement and improved the performance and the personal development plan. So the next one, what leads to is the discipline. So the reward will attract and fair if they are based on the following principles. That is the communication, the voice, the consistency, communicating, and relevance and timeliness is very important. So basically, this is the the conclusion, the summary of what we have actually learned is in the first stage, the performance management cycle is everything to do with planning, and employees are said to be very smart and objective. And acting upon is to ensure the ideas are fulfilling, and then ensuring that you are emphasizing on the review pattern and all that. So these are the meetings that you have to hold regularly. This is what they say, that in the organization, you need to have training, meetings, issues that are spoken of, progression, completion, what is unproductive. Discussing all these many issues in one meeting would simplify and frequently able to tick everything that you have already are planning to do when you have finished doing it. So, but according to, now that was the cycle, but according to the W. Edwards deeming development another cycle, which consists of the following stages. So according to W. Edwards, so this development have another cycle that is called as planning, doing the planned activity, check the result and act on the result, and to ensure that it is being very well documented. So what is development and implementation? What do we understand by development and implementation? The framework or essence of performance management is provided by the performance agreement, performance plans, and performance reviews. These are the results of the process that involves objective setting, review, and monitoring. So the establishment of PML as is influenced by contextual factors like structure of the organization, organizational culture, management style, and strategy. So each performance management system, that is the short form is P, is performance management and system, will result in an organization which is open, learning, and decentralized, one with high performance culture supported by participatory management style and proactive strategies. Such organizations make it clear that everyone should be flexible and dynamic. Using performance management is, as a lever for change. In performance management, there is too often a gap between the rhetoric and the reality. The performance of development and introducing performance management must concentrate on ensuring that worthy ambitions are translated to into effect actions by all concerned. Systematic approach by introducing performance management, hence essential. So what did we learn here is how our performance management system is like an influence. It's because it's an influence to an organization because it helps us to bring about a change in the culture, in the style and strategy. It helps the organization to become more dynamic and make sure that everybody becomes more flexible, as we have learned that how managers try to be our guide, our mentor, and a coacher, and how they help us to collaborate work and team building work. So all these ambitions work, they concentrate on being very ambitious, and hence we have understood that it is very essential part. Now you have 10-stage introduction process. Let's understand the most important 10-stage introduction process. Stage 1, it obtains top management support. It obtains top management support as if there is no support to performance management system. If the top management does not support this system and does not support the change of the culture, initiating the culture, developing the culture, decentralizing the work, trust me, no management will be able to, no employees will be able to commit if the top management is not committed itself. So that is the first stage that we have learned. The second stage is determine objectives. So the effective functioning of a system depends on the understanding of its purpose and the benefits that it promises to the participants. Therefore, the purpose of performance management system for its functioning must be clearly laid out. That is, in what are those objectives? That is to improve the performance, the team, and the individual. To provide closer integration, that is for the team, individual, and organization. Focus on the people doing the right things, to provide more objectives and to have a fair assessment performance, which is very, very vital. I mean, fairness and, planning these objectives in order to have a fair standard, fair means of measuring these. Implementation should always, happen because it helps us to The next objective is to empower individuals to manage their own performance and learning. So now, after understanding the first two stages, the third stage that we go in to understand to how to get the commitment and achieve participation of line managers. While we have understood that top management can only create the congenial atmosphere for the functioning of the system, it is the line managers who will implement it. So if they are not on board, the system will probably fail. It is therefore important to develop the engagement of line managers. That is to get the commitment and active participation of line managers. Next is involving guiding principles. So the active partners to performance management system are supervisors and employees. They should have clear understanding of the rules of the game, their roles and contribution. It should be made clear that it operates a partnership between managers and their staff who are equally involved in planning and reviewing performance and in implementing personal development and performance improvement plans. So these are the guidelines that they need to follow in order to evolve these guiding principles. These are the guiding principles that should be followed in order to improvise our plans. That is systems that work on clearly stated work objectives, reviews, feedback, constant feedback, identification of development, agreement between supervisors and employments. All these things should be able to work on. And the fifth stage is design, performance, and development plan and documentation. So each stage of the performance management cycle needs to be defined. So how? Because documentation should be drawn upon. Complexities and lengthy forms are a major cause of performance management failure. It should be emphasized that the forms should simply act as an aid memoir. They should not be allowed to dominate the procedure. Stage 6 is the pilot test. The pilot test, it indicates that the changes need to be made. It's like it is one of the most important, way of designing and operating in the real world. So it should also ensure that the pilot tests is the performance management that ensures that everyone learns what they need to know. And ideally, the test should cover the whole 12-month cycle. This may be very long, but at least 3 months and preferably 6 should be allowed. Next, stage 7 is communicate. I think, communication is one of the most vital important to evolve and to launch or to understand team leading, trade union managers and all. Then you have 8th stage, that is to provide training. Providing training is who provides training to whom. Of course, the top management does not require training, right? So the line managers should ensure that additional training are being given to staff and in terms of coaching, mentoring, and ongoing monitoring as well. Stage 9 is implement and monitor. The system is implemented and feedback on how well it is working is obtained periodically. There will be initial problems due to lack of proper understanding or inability to adapt to the new system. Proper guidelines is necessary and it should be made available. Next, you have stage 10, that is evaluate. It is very important to carry out a thorough evaluation of how performance management works after its first year of operation. So these were the most important 10-stage introduction process. So we have learned the cycle. We have also learned the first cycle. We've also learned the W. Edwards cycle, and then we've learned the 10-stage production process. So these are very, very important topics of performance management. Next that we need to know is the prerequisites of performance management system. So what are the prerequisites? So the first one is involvement of management. So what is involvement of management means? That there should be good participation from the members concerned in the organization, the support of top management at every stage of the development and implementation of the performance management system, which is very, very vital. Next is environment. Clearly defined organization vision, mission, and goals are essential to know the direction in which performance is required and to be encouraged. Clear definition of the roles is the basic need in the system. Without proper role definition and understanding, performance can be expected and driven. System design, that is identification and definition of key performance indicators, is central to the performance management system. Integrating rewards and recognition with the management system and will make it more meaningful and acceptable. System implementation, proper identification of training needs of employees and providing training will help in effective implementation. Open and transparent communication is required to engage and motivate employees. So what is the first one is the involvement of management. You have to ensure that there is equal amount of participation. Like I said, it should be a two-way process. Environment, you should be able to have a good environment which is based on the organizational mission, vision and mission, which is very, very essential, and it will help us in proper direction. System design is to be very, very careful in order to understand what is the key performance indicators and recognize the actual system. And the system implementation is to implement with most open and transparent way to engage and motivate the employers. So the next topic that we have come to is the talent management. So I think you know the performance management, that how much we have learned and how much growth that the organizations are getting in order to improvise the organizational standards is to ensure that there has to be talent in the organization. Only if you have talent, you will be able to succeed. And that is what is your natural ability that is required, is talented people in the organization. Talented people means what? Talented people means more productive people, the more creative people. Talent is what is attracted, it is developed, retained, and rewarded in the organization. Talent management refers to managing the ability, competency, and power of employees within an organization. Talent management is a process, involves 6 steps, right? What are those 6 steps? The first step is planning. I think we've been learning about planning since the first. I think now you know the importance of every steps initial process itself is to plan. Itself is to define, progress, identify, understand. So here also, in order to acquire talented people in the organization, you have to identify good people, identify the manpower, identify which what a kind of what you need to propose a good workforce for recruitment. Then is attracting what? Attracting internal and external sources both, right? So that is the job board. So you having deciding the hiring plan, attracting applicants for why they need to join our organization is also very important. If you don't do that, you will never have right talent to your organization. If you're not able to provide that attractive features, like how these portals like Naukri.com, all the social networking sites like LinkedIn, Twitter, referrals, all these websites that all these apps that that they are providing you a purpose, that why you need to upgrade your self in this particular site, and what you get in return, and what are the good companies that can come for your benefit. And this is how important that the applicants will start improvising their skills in order to get into such attractive organizations. So you have to ensure that you have to keep your organization very, very attractive. Next is in selecting. Selecting process involves the use of different assessment tools like written test, interview, medical test, group discussions. All these things should be assessed in order to select them. Then you have developing. In this, like onboarding, developing, training, counseling, guiding, coaching, educating. So all these things, job rotation, all these things are very, very challenging in order to bring about in the organization. So this is to bring about the 4th step, that you have to understand that the developing parameter has to be there in order to prepare the employee to be industry ready and to be very competitive. Then you have retaining. Employee retention is essentials for any organization existence and survival, right? Retention strategy aims at total rewarding of employees, and it includes the use of competitive financial remuneration, teaching new skills, recognition for the contribution made by the employee. Then you have transitioning. So you have, what does transitioning mean? That means talent management aims at creating the right feelings and views on organization. The process of retirement of employees should be smooth and swift, and it should include retirement benefits also to the employee and conducting. So these are the parameters. So these are the steps that requires talent management to be very, very effective, to have a very approachable way in order to maintain its process. So these are the ones that you have to focus on. Next is competency management. So now you know very well what is performance management, the difference between appraisal and performance management, the cycle that we've learned, the 10-stage process that we have learned, and so many topics that we have learned. The most important topic is talent management, that we have learned how to acquire talent. What is the process that you need to follow? Next that we come to is the competency management. Competency management, competency is what is defined as a quality of being competent, advocate, possession of required skill, knowledge, qualification, or capacity. So competencies are the key element in high performance talent management. Competency management is the pulse of employee development and performance excellence. The competency management as a business level for hiring, development, mobility, and promotion started more than 40 years ago. So to implement competency management, we need to understand 4 key concepts. That is, the competencies are abilities, behaviors, knowledge, and skills that impact the success of employees and their thinking, their communication and flexibility and teamwork. Competency model is also a set of key competency that is ideally 7 to 10 carefully selected in alignment within an organizational goals. Then competency proficiency scale is a defined rating or measurement that assigns an expected level of competency on a given competency scale rating range from 3 to 7 mastery levels, with 5 levels being the most common. So management, this competency management, in order to implement, we need to understand the concepts basically. So these concepts are relying on their ability, they are also rating them from 7 to 10 on their goals, leadership, functional, all these parameters. And also they have the scale rating also from 3 to 7 mastery levels within 5 levels of each of the most common ones. So the 4th concept is the setting the practices that identify and optimize the skills and competency required to deliver on an organizational business strategy. So the benefits that we get in order to make these concepts, in order to have these concepts, is the effective management concepts is to ensure that you have inventory competencies, improve talent planning, optimized development and mobility strategy, enhanced talent pipeline, and improved operational efficiencies. So what did we learn from these benefits is what is inventorying competencies to determine the proficiency of each competency. Improved talent planning is to ensure that you are improving them through recruitment, rewarding, and training these employees. Optimized development and mobility strategy is what it is created around the competency standards that have been identified for a specific role. Then you have enhanced talent pipeline, that is to trigger these further actions to move on to the next level. And improved operational efficiencies is to have training and the critical gaps that have to be filled in, and the leadership satisfaction with their overall experience with the organization. Making performance management effective. So how do we make performance management effective? That is to define and communicate company goals and performance objectives. That is, the first step is to understand that how do we define and communicate company goals and performance objective. You have to always understand that the employees are clearly understanding and they're outlining what you're trying to define them about their objectives. Next is to utilize performance management software. So you have to utilize the software in order to streamline employees to stay on the top of the thing so that the company is running smoothly and effectively. Offer frequent performance feedback. I think I told you the essence, the importance of feedback in every point. Also, they mentioned planning and feedback is so important because it helps us to improvise and bring about the positive behavior. Next is making performance management effective. How do you make performance management even more effective out of those 3 points that we have learned is also to ensure that you bring about, software and you're bringing about all these things. But next three things that you have to also make them effective is to use peer reviews, is to use preemptive management and recognition, regular meeting to discuss outcomes and results. So how do you do that? Actually, to use peer reviews is by watching colleagues, watching your senior colleagues, learning from them, your co-workers. What is the high-end utilization that they are building in order to bring the communication even more seamless to the employees? So you have to work together in order to understand their work levels as well. Preemptive management and recognition is to understand that the employees should know what is expected out of them and they should not be in confusion. The regular meeting to discuss outcomes and results. I think you need to regularly meet in order to understand the results, right? Okay, so today we finished block 3 of unit 10. So tomorrow that we will be doing unit 11 and we'll be learning about job satisfaction and employee moral. And then we will move to block 4. And like you all know that we have a lot of contents that we have to finish. All right. Okay. Then I will see you all tomorrow. Okay. Thank you.